Hey, Nickie Brown here, no matter where you are and no matter what part of the world you're in. I hope that you're having a delightful day. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you all. And I want to talk about the words we say, right? We have to be careful of the words we say and the thoughts that we think. A lot of times we'll hear people say that they want everything in their life to be positive, right? But there's duality in everything. There's two sides to every coin, as they say. And so there are certain things that you want to be negative, right? Like if you're taking a job or if you're applying for a job and you have to take a drug test, you want your drug test to be negative. If you're taking a pregnancy test and you don't want to be pregnant, you want your pregnancy test to be negative. If uh, I don't know how it works, but if you're having a blood pressure check done, you want your high blood pressure test to be negative. I don't think it works like negative or positive. I think it's numbers, but I'm not really sure um, if they can categorize it as negative or positive. But you understand what I'm saying. Hopefully, there are certain things that we want to be negative. However, we do want our thoughts to be more on the positive side. Um, and this is how we attract things or manifest things. And this is why a lot of times nowadays you hear people saying affirmations, right? People are saying positive affirmations. We're hearing that word a lot now. And some of those affirmations like might be I am worthy, right? If you grew up in an environment where nothing you did was ever good enough, right? You were never, acknowledged for doing well. You were only reprimanded for not doing something the right way. You may grow up with a sense of unworthiness, whether you realize it or not. And so saying I am worthy and I am enough, it's helpful. But a lot of times you have to really sometimes just saying it is not enough, right? Because your subconscious mind is like, yeah, right. You don't believe it. And how you know that you don't really believe it is you kind of sometimes may become a people pleaser, right? And you want to satisfy everybody because you weren't able to satisfy that person who you looked up to or admired growing up, right? Because we're almost expected to admire or seek praise from certain people, and so if you don't ever get that, you're seeking that validation from other people. This is one of the reasons why social media is so popular, right? Because someone can post a picture and it validates them and they get this attention. Whereas maybe when they were a child, they didn't get that attention. Especially someone who maybe they were a middle child and they feel like, they can never be as good as their older sibling. And then here comes the baby who gets more attention than they do, right? Because everybody's situation is different. And then some people had a great childhood where, they had that balance between both parents. They got the recognition, they got the lap time, as Dr. Francis Cress Welsing would say, they got plenty of hugs and kisses. But then once they got to elementary school, they realized it can be a cruel, cruel world. And so they started to be teased by people at school. Um, or even maybe a teacher said something that made them feel less than. And so that feeling of unworthiness can still come up because maybe, again, you had someone in your life growing up who said, "Oh, you're pretty, you're attractive." And then this first person you go to school, some little boy or some little girl actually likes you, but they don't know how to tell you that they like you. So they tease you and pick on you. And so it makes you feel unworthy or like you're not good enough. Or you draw a picture and they say that your picture's not good enough, whereas your parents say, "Oh, you did such a good job." And they hang it on the refrigerator. And now you have this person telling you, "Oh no, you're not doing a good job. It look ugly. It's stupid." So again, it makes you not want to do that thing anymore. Like I know for myself, and again, I always have to say this because not making it about me, but I'm giving you an example because this was my experience and I'm sharing my experience to be helpful, not to make it about me, right? So, I was told, I was teased about my voice, like, "Oh, you have a squeaky voice, this high pitched voice, blah, blah, blah," right? Now, when I was a little girl, people would gather around me and want to hear me sing. So I always thought I had a great voice until I got a little bit older and I started to get teased about my voice. So then that once, I was in my minor. So I have a degree in English, but my minor is media arts. Um, and it was originally, so it started out as media arts and then I changed it to, no, started think criminal justice and psychology. Then I went to media arts, then theater slash drama, and then I was gonna do nursing, and then I finally settled for English because it was the fastest way to finish after I had done all these different majors. I should have been undecided, but I didn't know that because I didn't have anybody to give me that guidance. Anyhow, once I started taking my media arts classes and my theater classes, and I had to record my voice and listen back to it, I didn't like it. And I realized those thoughts were not my own. Those thoughts were coming from the people who teased me about my voice. But I now realize I have a great voice, whether it's a singing voice or a speaking voice. Now, I haven't been singing as much as I used to when I was younger, um, but I still have a great voice, right? Um, Sometimes my pitch can be a little off when I'm singing, but that just comes with practice. So once I get back into the practice of singing, again, my voice sounds great. Um, and if I stay in a certain octave, again, my voice sounds great. My speaking voice or my singing voice, because you can't listen to the outside chatter. You can't allow anyone else to tell you who you are or what you are. You have to have that confidence within yourself. So just saying I am worthy and I am enough, again, your subconscious mind is like, "Yeah, right, because so and so said this." Even if you don't remember that at the moment, right? It comes up because your subconscious mind is still holding on to that. It's just like when you say, "I am wealthy," right? If you say, "I am wealthy," again, your subconscious mind is like, "No, you're not," right? So there's a guy, don't remember his name, but there are several people. They say you should ask it in the form of a question, like, "When will I be wealthy?" Right? In terms of "I am enough," again, you have to start to embody that confidence. There was a young lady on Facebook the other day, and I think she said she was like 300 and something pounds, maybe say like 315, and she's now to down to 245. I don't remember the exact numbers, but something like that, right? And so she posted a picture of herself, um, a front profile and a side profile. And she said, "Can y'all tell me if it looks like I've lost weight? Because my family says I'm too fat to notice whether or not I've lost weight." And so this is one of the things that happen. People get into our minds, right? Um, there was a time if I saw my grandmother, it could have been years since I've seen her or months since I've seen her. The first thing she would say, she wouldn't even say hello. She would look at me or poke me in my stomach and say, "I never had a stomach that big when I was your age." These are the types of things that mess with people's self-esteem. And sometimes people have good intentions because they think that's a good way of helping you to lose weight, but it's very destructive and it messes with people's mind. And sometimes, again, people don't know because it was done to them. Sometimes people are jealous because maybe you are confident even though you have some weight on you and they don't like it because they couldn't be that confident at the same weight. Um, but I honored her, right? I told her, absolutely, we can tell that you lost weight and you should keep going. And I just let her know that sometimes, our families doesn't they don't always have our best interests at heart, or they think they're doing something good when they're really not. And so you have to ignore that. But then too, one of the things I advise people to do is not make it about you, right? Help other people, even though you might be going through something, right? You don't have food in your house, but you can give someone food for thought that would help them, right? And then that makes you feel good. And when you feel good, you attract good things to you. So you'll go from not having food one minute to having food the next, right? And sometimes our words are very powerful. And if you have no food and you say, um, "I want a salad," all of a sudden a friend calls you and invites you out to dinner or lunch and they treat you to a salad. But you have to know that this is possible. You have to understand the words that you're saying make a difference. If you continue to say, "I don't have," you'll continue not to have it. Like, I almost cringe when I hear people say, "I am broke." I cringe. And I remember saying to my sister, "You should stop saying that because if you keep saying that, it's going to continue to be true." And it completely went over her head. She didn't get it. So sometimes you have to leave it alone and people will learn in their own time. Even when someone says that about you, you have to rebuke it, as they say, right? Don't accept that. Don't receive it. If somebody says something that you don't feel that you are or you don't want to be, as soon as they say it, pray about it, meditate on it, release it, and get it away from you. Because again, people are only repeating the things that they know or they hear, right? And then you may be in a situation where people say, "Oh, well, you should be able to do this or you should be able to do that," right? But the reality is, if you weren't taught how to get to that place, you don't know, right? If all you saw was lack growing up, you tend to repeat the cycle, whether you know it or not. And you may have moments when you rise above it and overcome it, But a lot of times you just stay like what's considered middle class, which is, uh, I'm going to say now, $150,000 or less. And that is success to some people, but to some people it's not. They say that majority of Americans live from paycheck to paycheck. And the more you make, the more you spend. So basically, those people who earn that $150,000, they go and buy a big house. So they're spending more of that money. So it pretty much balances out to be the same thing. Sometimes they do get into a place where they can save, they can pay off their debts, but then sometimes they get into more debt trying to keep up with this lifestyle. Whereas really we're meant to live very simple and minimalistic. My great aunt, she used to be a CNA, and CNAs don't make a whole lot of money. And this was, um, she passed away in the early 2000s. My great uncle passed away in 2011, so she passed away years before that. So let's say she was a CNA in like the 70s and 80s. And let's say minimum wage was like $5. So let's say she made no more than $8. Maybe she made 10. I don't know. But for back then, that was still considered like minimum wage. I mean, like middle class, right? Or whatever. She lived in a housing project, right? So her rent wasn't a lot. Utilities, I think, were included, water and electricity and heat. And she was able to save her money, although she didn't make a lot. My grandmother, on the other hand, worked for the telephone company, which was considered a good job, right? And let's say she made equivalent of $15 an hour, which would probably be like $35 an hour now. I'm just making up some numbers because, again, I don't know the exact numbers, right? But that was considered, again, a good job. She didn't keep money, right? Because every time she got paid, she would go shopping. And she always had the best high heel shoes or the best, suits and all the things because she worked in New York. So she had to pay for transportation. Then we lived in a big house. Then she had a car. My great aunt didn't have any of those things. She took public transportation to and from. So again, because she wasn't making as much, she didn't spend as much, so she was able to save. Whereas my grandmother wasn't necessarily able to save. Even during retirement with Social Security and her pension, which she got a good amount of money in pension and with Social Security, she I, she might have been making more than she was when she was working, but still had that paycheck to paycheck mentality. And all her bills would be paid at the beginning of the month. She would sit down and she would budget and she would, write all her checks and make sure all her bills were paid. And then she would budget whatever she had left over for the month. And then she was always giving people money, and all the things. But again, when you grow up in that environment, those people pass that down to you because they didn't teach you how to save. They just taught you how to spend or to dress good and to look good and to have the big house in the car, right? So that's what you strive towards. And again, if you don't ever learn how to save, you continue that same lifestyle into your old age. You may pay all your bills, but then you're still basically paycheck to paycheck. And people say, oh, I'm on a fixed income. Almost everybody's on a fixed income. If you have a job where you don't get overtime, you're on a fixed income. I'm, you know, you may get a cost of living increase or a raise, but some people don't even get that. And if you have one of those jobs where if you take a day off, you don't get paid for it, then that's less than your fixed income. But again, in order to combat that, we have to change the way we think. We have to change our ways, our thoughts, and our actions, right? Because a lot of times we have habits. Some people have the habit of spending their whole entire paycheck until it's gone. And so, again, when you say, I am wealthy, your subconscious mind is like, no, you're not, because you're looking at what's in your bank account. So you pay your bills and you go out to eat and you stop to the liquor store. If you smoke, you buy your cigarettes. You have to have money for transportation. So maybe you fill up your gas tank or you buy a bus card or train pass, whatever. And, or you make sure you have enough for your Uber or your Lyft. And you buy food, right? And then you look back at your bank account. So, as the Bible scripture says, faith without works is dead, you have to work towards becoming wealthy, becoming better, becoming enough. Sometimes you can fake it till you make it, right? But again, your subconscious mind knows the truth. So if you say, I am worthy, you have to really start to know that you are worthy. You are worthy of being better. You are worthy of being successful. Stop listening to things that say, "Oh, we're not supposed to have this or we're not supposed to have that." That's not true. We come from abundance and prosperity. We were merchants. We bartered. It's just that we used natural resources instead of fake money, right? There was a time where money was backed by gold. But now it's like monopoly money. The value has decreased and it's not backed by any natural resources. And they just print it whenever they want to. And they make us feel it has value because we live in a capitalist society. In order for us to live a good life or live a comfortable life and be able to maintain the things that we have to have money to pay for things. But that actually goes against our very nature. And we need to understand that. Wealth is community, wealth is family, having good relationships with your relatives. And some people can't have good relationships with their relatives. Sometimes you have to create your own relatives with the people that you meet and interact with. You have to make them part of your family. Because, as the saying goes, sometimes family can be the worst. You want to surround yourself with like minded people. And again, that's not always possible. So you have to create some type of distance from those people. And that's not easy. Because sometimes you'll find yourself by yourself, right? Because there are a lot of manipulative, dishonest, disrespectful, um, narcissistic, psychopathic, sociopathic, unkind, uncaring people. And so, if you're the opposite of that, you may find it challenging to maintain that. And a lot of times, people will repeat that same behavior that they see around them, like, oh, well, ain't nobody so and so and so and so, but that's not true. And you shouldn't be focused on what other people are doing. You should be focused on yourself and what you're doing. What are you doing to make a difference? And all it takes is a decision for you to do different or be different. Show up different. You don't have to repeat the same behavior, but you also don't have to let people take advantage of you, right? You can be kind, but you can also put people in their place and let them know that you're not the one to play with. And ask me how I know. You don't have to let people take advantage of you, manipulate you. You don't have to let people talk to you crazy. You don't have to let people treat you crazy. You don't have to do it. And I noticed that some people don't communicate. Instead of communicating, I don't like this and I don't like that and I'm not going to let you do this. They do things to be mean and spiteful as if that's hurting the person when it's really hurting them. If you walk around angry, you're only hurting yourself. And even if somebody else can pick up on it, it's still not hurting them. Speak your mind, and you don't have to say it with an attitude, because sometimes people don't even know that they've done something that bothers you or that triggered you. If you don't speak up about it, open your mouth and talk, and learn how to talk without always having an attitude. Just say, oh, I didn't like this, or this bothered me when you did this. Learn how to feel comfortable speaking up, because doing something behind their back to be petty and spiteful is silly. And it'll come back around to you. It's not going to hurt them as much as it hurts you when it comes back around. Because when it comes back around worse. And then a lot of times people don't realize that this is their karma. They've reaped what they've sown. And they just feel like, oh, well, I just have misfortune in my life. When no, you're dishonoring yourself by attempting to hurt someone. And you don't even know whether or not they did it intentionally or unintentionally. Most people are only thinking of themselves when they do something. Like, even if somebody cheats, right? They're only thinking of satisfying their own loins at that moment. They're not thinking about whether or not they hurt somebody. Now, does that make it right? No. Right? Because it it makes this person untrustworthy. Um, and once you lose trust for somebody, a lot of times, really, the relationship is over because most people can't forgive and move on and accept what happened. A lot of people can't do that. Some people can, but a lot of people can't. And a lot of times they'll stay. And again, they do stuff to get revenge instead of trying to heal and work on it. Um, or they'll cheat back and they, all the different things. It's not good. And again, you're showing your children this, and so it comes back around. It comes back to you. And you have to watch your children go through the same hurt and pain because you never healed. And if you don't want to heal, that's fine, right? You don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. But then you can't question why certain things are happening in your life. You can say, I am worthy and I am enough all you want to. But if you're doing things that are the opposite of that, again, your subconscious mind is like, no, you're not. So I said all this to say, I don't like the word careful, but be mindful of the things that you say. Our words are very powerful. Our actions speak louder than our words. And so, again, if your actions are to spin, 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 and you're saying, I am worthy, your subconscious mind is like, no, you're not. And although we are supposed to circulate money and not hold on to it, but it's still about the mindset. What you're thinking is more important than what you're doing sometimes. But what you're doing is a result of what you're thinking. So you have to be careful about what you're thinking, and so that what you're doing changes. So set a goal for yourself, right? Let's say you want to save money. Save $10 and watch that $10 accumulate over a certain period of time. If you can save more than that, save more than that. But I bet you spend $10 eating out. More than $10, but I'm just using a small number to make it easier for you to understand. If you want to stop smoking, right? A lot of times it's mind over matter. Because once you stop smoking for 7 days, nicotine is out of your system, right? So then it becomes a matter of willpower. So that when something happens or something goes wrong, instead of running to a cigarette, you have to figure out another way. Or instead of running to a drink, you have to figure out another way. You could exercise. You could go for a walk. You could chew gum. I don't recommend eating because a lot of times when people stop smoking, they start gaining weight. So you have to find a healthier outlet. And you have to tell yourself, I can do it. Like the story of the little engine it could, right? The original story, the little engine needed to pull the steam engine. And he's going up the hill and he's like, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And once he gets to the top of the hill and starts to go down, he's like, I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could. But once the story was retold, it was told in a more negative way. It was like, I think I can, I think I can. But never I thought I could, I thought I could. After it was achieved. So whatever you think, you're right. If you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, You won't, because it's your mind. These are your thoughts. So you're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. And if you think you can do it, then you know you can do it. And you have to be patient with yourself and give yourself grace, right? You have to trust yourself, right? A lot of times we grow up in environments where we were disappointed. Somebody told us they were going to do something and they didn't do it. So then we grow up not trusting people, and we also don't trust ourselves. And we unknowingly sometimes repeat that same behavior because we don't trust ourselves to do the right thing. And then when you see somebody who is doing the right thing, you still don't trust them because you're like, nobody's like that. Nobody does that. You know how many times I've had people say that about me? Oh, I'm going to wait to see how she really is. Well, keep waiting, keep looking. Now, if you bother me, anybody, if you back a dog into a corner, he going to bite you. So don't misunderstand, right? People will bite you if you try to attack them or back them into a corner. But that doesn't mean that they're not the way that they are because you don't think they are or you don't think that they should be. And it doesn't mean that they're stupid or naive either because that is another common mistake. They're watching you, they see what you're doing, and they never would trust you. And when they have the opportunity, they remove themselves from their life. And a lot of times, I know when I was younger, I would give people the benefit of the doubt because, I used to have that mindset that, like, oh, you're supposed to be this person's friend or this is your relative or whatever the case may be. So you have to talk to them, type of thing. No, I don't. You're not the type of person that I want to be around because you don't do right. And you try to take advantage of people and you try to manipulate people. And you thought I was stupid and didn't know. But I knew exactly what was going on. I just didn't say anything. Because you don't have, everything doesn't need to be said. You don't have to cuss somebody out or yell at somebody every time they do something. They know what they're doing. And in knowing that they know what they're doing, for me, it's just easier for me to walk away. Right? I don't have to be around you because I don't want to tolerate that type of behavior. So I'm going to go ahead on about my business and let you do you and be who you are. And let me separate and distance myself because I don't want to be around people like that. I remember this girl, she, I'm sure I was in my late teens, early 20s. So like 19, maybe 20. And this girl invited another girl over to her house. And they were a little bit older than me. So less than 25 years old, though. So maybe 22, 23, right? She invites this other girl over. And she says, oh, I bought you a Christmas present. And the girl came over and she didn't open the door. And she thought this was the funniest thing in the world because she didn't buy this girl a present, but she still had her come over. So then the girl, because we didn't have cell phones back then, so then the girl went home because she was ringing the bell, and of course the girl didn't answer. She acted like she wasn't there. Girl went home, she called. She's like, oh, I was just over there, you didn't answer the door. So she came back. And again, this girl thought this was the funniest thing in the world. And I'm thinking in my mind, this is so fucked up. But again, I said nothing, but I just watched the behavior. And so that just let me know I can't trust this person, right? So, in not being able to trust this person, I'm not telling you anything. If you tell me something, I'm less likely to believe you because I know that you're a liar. right? A pathological liar. This person would make stuff up all the time. And so you had to take it with a grain of salt. You didn't know when to believe her, and didn't know when not to believe her. So if she said something and it turned out not to be true, I didn't even get mad because you're showing me who you are and I believe you. And so when the time was right, I just distanced myself from this person. And again, I thought I was still supposed to be friends with this person or talk to this person. So I would still talk to this person every once in a while. And then, sometimes people will try to make you feel guilty or ashamed, like, oh, like you act like you don't know where you came from, or you're supposed to like always, um, like if you don't, like you turned your back on your community if you don't um, do this thing or that thing, or you know you think you're better than somebody, and all of these different things. You can't let people get into your mind and say things that don't make sense, because you have to do what's best for you. And again, if you grew up in an environment where the majority of the people exhibit bad behavior and you don't want to be around that bad behavior, you have a right to distance yourself. And it's not about thinking you're better than somebody. It's not even about like going from the city to the suburbs or to the country. It's not about that, right? It's about doing what is best for your mind so that you can be a better person. And if you still choose to hang out with that person, that may be that friend that you go to a restaurant to eat, or you go to their house and you hang out for a little while, have a beer, drinks, play cards, and that's it, right? But then you may have another set of friends where you go to formal events or dinners, um, or whatever it is that you do with those other people. You may have to categorize them. So you don't have to not talk to them at all, but you definitely, of course, can't bring them in certain environments because you know that they'll act ugly. Um, and again, if you need to go no contact or totally distance yourself from certain people, then you should do that. I know I've had people accuse me of doing things that they were guilty of. These are not the type of people, if you're really not like that, you don't want to be around those types of people. Because you'll either start to repeat their behavior, or you'll be around, you could be in a room full of people and feel like you're by yourself because you're nothing like any of those people in that environment. And sometimes it's not easy, again, to not be around people because then you'll find yourself by yourself. But you have to be comfortable with being by yourself. And when you're by yourself, you can't abuse yourself by drinking and smoking and having these negative thoughts, having these pity parties. Woe is me, I don't have anybody. Find something else to do with your time. Learn a new skill. Learn a hobby. Do something for yourself. Clean up. Take a bath. Do that project you said you've been wanting to do. Like, I've been wanting to paint these dressers. I want to paint them a pretty teal color. I don't have the paint yet. I would like to get some paint with primer, and like I said, paint them a very pretty like teal kind of color. That's the color for the season, like a sea blue type of bluish greenish color. Um, so if you have some type of project at your house that you want to do, do it. Right? If you have a garden or you've been wanting to start a garden, go out and start your garden. Even if you start it in a flower pot, on the fire escape, on the balcony, on the porch, if you don't have the yard space. If you want to lose weight, get up and move. Go for a walk. Do some calisthenics. There's plenty of free videos on YouTube. You don't need a gym membership. You can use your own body weight to lose weight. But do something different. Because if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're not going to see a different result. If you keep hanging around those same people that have that same energy that you don't like, again, you may become like those people. So, again, be mindful of your ways, thoughts, and actions, especially your thoughts. Your thoughts become things. Even when you see somebody, like I had one of my coworkers the other day, there was a guy who got off the train and he was like, "Ooh, I don't mean to be mean, but," and I had never heard him speak like that. Because when I ask him, "Oh, how are you doing?" he always says, "Outstanding," right? So this particular day, he was like, "Oh, I don't mean no harm, but that guy was really funky." And I was like, you know what? We're not going to judge. Some people work really hard. So everybody has an off day. Maybe he just had a hard off day. He worked really hard. And when I say off day, I mean, you know, in terms of body odor. Um, I say you never know what happened. Maybe he got extra sweaty, whatever the case may be. So we're going to show him some grace and not talk about him. Because that's one of the things I'm working on. Not talking about people in my mind. That is very hard when you grew up around people who always talked about people. If you see somebody with ran over shoes, that person may not know the shoes are ran over. They don't even know that they're not supposed to wear ran over shoes. Or they don't have the money to buy more shoes. You never know what somebody's situation is. So who are we to judge? You never know what somebody's circumstance, situation, or mindset is as to why they do the things that they do. And you can acknowledge that they may be a little off. But still, that's judging them. Even if you expect somebody to do something that you would do, you're judging them. Nobody has to do what you would do. That doesn't make them a bad person. It just makes them different. And we're here to learn from our differences, not to judge and criticize one another. And when I say that, people don't get it. That's not what we're here for. We're here to learn from one another. And the more irritating somebody is, the more you can learn from them. The more different somebody is, the more you can learn from them. So instead of name calling, yelling, screaming, getting an attitude, or judging them, talking about them, gossiping about them, seek to understand. A lot of times growing up, people made a lot of assumptions about me, and I let them because they never ask. If you don't ask, you're going to assume, and you're going to assume you know. And I'll sit and listen to a lot of times people are so narcissistic they could sit and talk about themselves for hours, and they never once realize that you're not really saying anything about yourself. You're not sharing your own story. Like I've had females who talk about like sex and how it was good or how this went in their relationship, and I just sit and listen, and I may nod as if I agree, but that doesn't mean I agree. Doesn't mean I did it or would do it. It just that means that if you're okay with it, then okay, I'm okay with it too. If you like it, I love it. But they didn't know how I think or how I felt about it because they never did ask. And I'm not the person to just volunteer the information because I don't want